My name is Emily, I'm 29 years old, and currently in the final month of my first pregnancy. Right now, my emotions are a strange mix of anticipation and anxiety, as if I'm standing at the threshold of something miraculous yet daunting. When I'm alone sitting on the old beige sofa in our small house in the Riverview suburbs, I often place my hands on my belly, feeling the baby's gentle kicks and whisper, "Mommy's here." Everyone says that being a first time mom is incredibly overwhelming, and I'm no exception. I've read dozens of books, joined maternity support groups, and even attend online prenatal classes every evening. I've tried to prepare the best I can, yet the fear that I might not be strong enough to be a mother still clings to me. My husband Derek is 33 and works in finance. He often says he's busy, stressed, and needs to relax on weekends. Almost every Friday evening, he drives to his parents' house in Hillcrest, about 2 hours away. No special occasion, no urgent reason. Just a habit, as he calls it. I've grown used to being alone in the house, quietly moving back and forth between the kitchen and living room with my belly growing heavier by the day. Derek barely helps around the house, not even with simple tasks like carrying grocery bags or wiping the kitchen table after dinner. Once I asked him to help set up the baby's room, and he merely glanced over and mumbled, "You're on maternity leave now, you've got more time than I do." It's hard to believe that someone about to become a father could say that, but I was too exhausted to argue. I still clearly remember that scorching Saturday afternoon, struggling to haul a sack of rice from the car to the house. Standing in the yard, sweat pouring down my face, I silently wished someone would help me. But Derek was off fishing with his dad as if I didn't even exist. I texted him and he replied with a single line, "You've got this. You're strong." As I sat silently in the kitchen, surrounded by the lingering smell of food and the muffled sound of the TV from the living room, I wondered, did I choose the wrong person? But then the baby moved inside me, reminding me I wasn't alone. I have my baby, the only hope that keeps me going every day. Derek isn't entirely a bad person. When we first got married, he was gentle and caring. But ever since I got pregnant, things seem to have changed. He's become distant, irritable, and often critical. The time I forgot to buy his favorite coffee, he coldly said, "You stay home all day doing nothing but eating and sleeping." Words like that felt like daggers straight to my heart. I didn't respond, knowing he would just blame my pregnancy hormones. So I swallowed my anger, forced a smile, and turned away, telling myself, just hold on a little longer. Once the baby is born, things will change. I truly want to believe that. I want to believe that when he holds our child for the first time, something in him will awaken, allowing him to love more deeply. But deep down, I know I'm clinging to a fragile hope. Only 3 weeks remain until my due date. I've prepared everything. Baby clothes, a packed hospital bag ready by the door. Yet Derek keeps talking about going to Hillcrest this weekend, maybe even staying a few days. I've been silent for too long, but this time I'm not sure I can endure it anymore. That morning, I woke up earlier than usual, my back aching after a restless night. I shuffled into the kitchen to make Derek coffee. Even though I can't drink any myself, I placed the steaming mug beside the simple breakfast I struggled to prepare. He walked in, eyes glued to his phone. "The toast is burnt. Don't you know how to use a toaster?" I bit my lip, holding back tears. I had tried 3 times, each slice came out burnt. That toaster had been malfunctioning for days, but I hadn't had the chance to replace it yet. "I'm sorry, I'll make another." "Forget it. I bet Mom's cooking something better anyway." He cut me off. That wasn't just a complaint, it was a comparison I'd grown too used to. Every time my cooking didn't please him, he brought up his mother Miranda as some untouchable standard of perfection. "Her apple pie is always soft and sweet. Yours is like rubber. Her soup smells like a winter morning, and yours." I'd heard things like that too many times. It was like a worn-out refrain in our marriage. But today, with my belly-heavy, feet swollen, and another sleepless night from Braxton Hicks contractions, I didn't have the patience to smile anymore. I took a deep breath and quietly cleared the table, but Derek continued. "Oh, and Mom's inviting us over for dinner tonight. Don't forget to bring a gift. She's still upset about that scarf you gave her last time." I think I'll stay home and rest. The due date's getting close. "Oh, come on, stop making excuses. Pregnant women aren't that fragile. My mom worked right up until the day she gave birth. Not like you sitting around all day blogging." I didn't argue back. I knew saying anything would only make things worse, but inside I was seething. That blog I updated daily was the only thing left that made me feel valuable. I shared photos of sunsets through our small window, home cooked meals, thoughts about my pregnancy, things my husband never cared about. That afternoon, I forced myself to walk to the supermarket 2 blocks away to buy a few things for dinner. Carrying the heavy bags, my belly felt like it was pulling me down. I hoped that when I got home, Derek would help. But when I opened the door, he was lying on the couch, eyes fixed on the TV, not even glancing up. "What took you so long? I'm starving." I set the bags down, heart sinking. "You could have made yourself something simple." "What did you just say?" His voice was sharp. "Don't be disrespectful. I'm the one working to support this house, and you dare talk back." I froze. I wanted to scream that being pregnant isn't just lounging around. That every night I lose sleep because of cramps. Breathlessness, constant kicking, but I stayed silent. I went into the kitchen, reheated some chicken soup, sliced a few pieces of bread, and set the table. He ate a few spoonfuls, then pushed the bowl away. "The soup's cold. Next time, do it properly." After dinner, I washed the dishes in silence, the music from the living room blaring like a cruel reminder that this house now only had one occupant. I leaned my forehead against the cabinet, eyes closed, trying to hold back tears. I once thought pregnancy meant being loved and protected. But now, I felt like just a live-in maid. I never asked for flowers or gifts, just a kind word. A hug when I was tired, but even that seemed too far out of reach. That night when I went to bed, Derek was still laughing out loud at his favorite show in the living room. I turned my back to the door, wrapped my arms around my belly, and made a silent vow. "Mommy will protect you at all costs." On the weekend morning after finishing up cleaning the nursery, I was catching my breath from exhaustion when I heard Derek's unexpectedly cheerful voice from the living room. "Emily, pack your things. Next week, we're going to Pine Hill with my parents for a few days, a family trip before the baby comes." I froze. "Next week, Derek." Even though the due date hasn't come yet, the doctor said I could go into labor any time now. He waved dismissively, voice annoyed. "You're always so negative." "A few days in the mountains will be good for both you and the baby. My mom says the fresh air is great for pregnant women." A chill ran down my spine. Less than 2 weeks until the due date, I had everything ready. Hospital bag documents, checkup schedule. And now he wanted to go on a trip. I don't think we should. "I don't want to take the risk." Derek cut me off, his voice growing sharper. Derek had already told his parents in advance. They were very excited about the trip. "You just need to rest at the cabin. I'll take care of the rest?" I stayed silent, not because I agreed, but because I knew that if I spoke up, it would only end in another pointless argument. Ever since I got pregnant, I've had to compromise too much, and now I had to ask myself whether I should keep compromising forever. That afternoon, I called my doctor to ask about the risks of early labor. The doctor gently advised me to avoid long-distance travel and to have everything ready in case of a sudden delivery. Her words echoed in my mind, but Derek couldn't be bothered. In the end, I reluctantly packed my things, zipped up the suitcase, and prepared for the trip. I didn't feel safe, but I tried to stay calm, just hoping everything would be all right. On the morning of our departure, the sky was overcast, and cold winds seeped through the cracks in the windows. As I stepped into the car and sat in the passenger seat, a strange cramp suddenly twisted through my lower belly. I looked down, a warm gush spread across my dress. My water had just broken. "Derek, I think. My water just broke. We need to get to the hospital right now." He turned to me, frowning as if I had just ruined his vacation. "What? Now, are you kidding me?" "I'm not kidding. The baby's coming. I need to go to the hospital now." But instead of reacting properly, Derek opened the car door and looked at the wet stain on the leather seat with a scowl. "Seriously, you soaked the leather seat. Couldn't you have held it a little longer?" I stared at him in shock. "I need emergency care, please." He let out a sigh, then without hesitation opened my door. "Get out. I'm not letting that smell linger in my car. Call a cab or something." I was speechless. What did you say? I can't go alone. There's no time. I'm not missing this trip just because you're being dramatic again." And right in front of me, Derek opened the trunk, took out my suitcase, placed it on the sidewalk, and drove off, leaving me standing helplessly at the roadside as the first contraction tightened around my belly. I struggled to grab my phone and call for emergency help. my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped it. Just then, a car slowly pulled up beside me. Emily. A familiar voice called from the window as it rolled down. It was Samantha, the neighbor who lived a few houses away. She jumped out of her car, eyes filled with concern. "Your water broke. Get in the car right now, I'll take you to the hospital." Without waiting for my reply, Samantha gently helped me into the car, buckled my seatbelt, and hit the gas. On the way to the hospital, she held my hand, calming me, asking about my condition. I was in pain and completely humiliated, but all I could feel was gratitude. "Where's your husband? Why am I the one taking you?" she asked softly. I didn't answer. I just lowered my head, tears rolling down. When we arrived, everything happened so fast, I was wheeled into the emergency room, heart pounding, my mind spinning with one haunting question. Does the man who was once my husband even deserve a place in my daughter's life? I didn't know. But I knew one thing: the moment Derek drove away was the moment I let go of the last illusion I had about our marriage. I woke up under the pale white lights of the hospital room. The smell of antiseptic and the beeping of monitors reminded me I was safe, or at least alive, after that nightmare. The memories rushed back: my water breaking, being left on the roadside, and Samantha who pulled me out of disaster. When I opened my eyes, Samantha was sitting by my bed, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold. She looked up and smiled gently, as if she'd been waiting a long time. "You're awake, thank God," her voice trembled. I nodded slightly, my throat dry. "My baby, how is she?" "A little girl, healthy and beautiful like an angel." Samantha answered, then took my hand. "The doctor said the birth went very smoothly, both you and the baby are fine." I let out a breath of relief. Tears flowed not from pain, but from overwhelming gratitude. Samantha squeezed my hand gently. "You don't need to say anything," she said, as if reading my mind. "I already called your parents, they're on their way." Hearing that, I couldn't hold back my emotions. Ever since I married Derek against their wishes, there had always been distance between me and my parents. But now, when I was at my weakest, they were coming. That warmed my heart. About an hour later, the door burst open. My parents rushed in, their faces filled with worry. My mother hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. My father, usually so composed, had reddened eyes as he looked at me, lying there still hooked up to IVs. "My sweet girl, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have let you go through this alone." I shook my head, my voice choked. "No. Don't say that I chose this path, but no one deserves to be abandoned like that." My father said, then turned to Samantha with eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you." "Truly, I just did what anyone should," Samantha replied gently. My mother stayed to take care of me while my father stepped outside to speak with the doctor. Samantha also prepared to leave, but before she walked out, she turned back and said quietly, "There's something you should know. Yesterday, after I brought you to the hospital, Derek called me multiple times." I froze. "Did he say anything?" "Just left one message. Is Emily okay?" I let out a bitter laugh that caught in my throat. "He abandoned me on the street. And that's all he asked." Samantha looked at me seriously. "You don't need to decide anything right now, but if one day you want to take action, I'm willing to testify. I saw everything." Her words echoed in me like a lifeline thrown into a storm. I knew the moment I stepped out of that car was the moment I left the marriage I never should have entered. That evening, I was moved to the postpartum room. My mother rocked the baby to sleep while my father sat by the window, holding a newspaper to mask his emotions. I looked at the small crib beside the bed. My baby girl, so tiny, slept soundly. Her lips gently puckered. I placed my hand on my belly, now soft and empty. But something else was growing inside me. Willpower. When the nurse came in to check, she said softly, "Miss Samantha left her number and a small envelope for you." Inside was a video clip from the security camera showing the moment I was brought into the hospital. "If you need evidence in the future, this footage is very important." The nurse said. I held the envelope, my hand trembling not from fear but because I knew this was the first step. Just a few minutes of footage, but undeniable proof of the long journey I had silently endured. I turned toward my sleeping daughter and whispered, "My little princess, I promise I'll never let anyone hurt us again." And in that moment, I knew I was about to do the one thing that used to terrify me the most. Start over, but this time with my daughter in my arms, I would never walk alone. Even though my face in the clip was blurred, anyone watching could understand what was happening. A medical student happened to witness everything and recorded it. The video went viral, over 2 million views in just 48 hours. I sat there in stunned silence. At first, no one knew who I was, but someone recognized the license plate and tracked down the owner of the car. That's how Derek's identity was exposed, Samantha continued. We kept your information private. All anyone knows is that he abandoned his pregnant wife. I looked at her, my heart pounding. Is it really that serious? Samantha nodded, very serious. The internet is furious. There are analyses everywhere about how heartless he is. People even dug up his old posts on LinkedIn and Facebook. Everything was being scrutinized. I swallowed hard. Part of me still hurt. This man used to be my husband, but another part felt liberated. The things I had endured in silence were now being brought to light, and it didn't stop there. Samantha went on. My husband Brian happens to know the CEO of the finance company where Derek worked. When the video blew up, the news reached them. Initially, the company planned to handle it internally, but then I waited. He's been suspended. And this morning, there was an internal memo confirming his employment has been terminated. The reason causing serious reputational damage to the company, I didn't know what to feel. Not exactly joy, but more like a quiet exhale after years of suffocation. What about his parents? I asked softly. Samantha shrugged. They've been dragged into it too. Neighbors have started talking about how they often heard shouting from that house. Some even recall Miranda Derek's mom insulting her daughter-in-law in front of guests. The internet doesn't let anything slide. Everything is being unearthed. I was overwhelmed. My mom added, lately someone took photos of Derek's parents' house and spread rumors. There's even a hashtag going around calling for a boycott of their family bakery. They had to temporarily shut it down. I sat still, a swirl of emotions churning inside me. For a fleeting moment, I felt like justice was speaking, not with the bang of a judge's gavel, but with truths too clear to ignore. I'm not telling you this, so you'll feel satisfied, Samantha said, placing a hand on my shoulder. I just want you to know you're not alone this time. No one can look away from what you've been through. I gripped her hand deeply, moved. Thank you. I honestly don't know what to say. Save your strength. The road ahead is still long, Samantha said as she stood up. But I believe you're strong enough to keep going. As she left, I remained seated, watching my daughter sleep peacefully in the crib. My eyes settled on the envelope with the video the nurse had left behind. I still hadn't opened it, but now I knew it was time. Not for revenge, but to protect my daughter's future. What Derek did wasn't just a momentary lapse in judgment. It was undeniable proof of a broken, loveless marriage. I whispered like a vow. If you chose to abandon us, don't expect us to ever look back. I was discharged on a cool, clear morning, cradling my daughter in my arms. Heart tangled in 1,000 thoughts. My parents had prepared a room for us at their home in the Rosefield suburbs. It was filled with sunlight, painted in soft pastel hues, with a tiny crib beside my bed. Looking at my daughter sleeping so peacefully, I knew I had to be stronger than ever. Not just for myself, but for her. Only 3 days after returning home, Derek started calling nonstop. Texts, calls, emails, all filled with fake remorse and blame. Don't blow this out of proportion, I just panicked. Nobody's perfect. My parents are really suffering from this. You should think about the family. I didn't respond, but when he began sending messages like, "You're the reason I lost my job. If you hadn't overreacted, everything would be fine," I knew it was time to act. That night, I sat down with my parents. My father, Martin, a retired lawyer, listened quietly while my mother gently rocked her granddaughter in her arms. "You've suffered enough," my father said. "Now it's time to end this." He referred me to a former colleague, Elaine Parker, a sharp and composed divorce attorney. When I gave her the recordings of Derek yelling and insulting me during my pregnancy, along with the video of him abandoning me on the roadside, Elaine simply nodded. "We've got more than enough. Let me handle the legal side. Your job is to care for your child and recover." The divorce papers were filed the following week. I requested full custody and a reasonable amount of child support based on Derek's income before he was fired. A few days later, he called not with apologies but with anger. "You can't divorce me over one little mistake. You're ruining my life. What do you want?" Money, I stayed calm, pressed record, and let Elaine take over afterward. The next day, she told me he refused to sign the papers. "But it's fine. We'll file a court summons if necessary." Just as expected, once Elaine submitted the full documentation and issued the legal notice, Derek's attitude began to change. He sent a long email, half apology, half denial. "I have nothing to do with that baby. If you want to raise her, do it yourself. I can't afford child support." I didn't reply, just forwarded it to Elaine. She gave a cold smile. "Good, that kind of blatant denial will actually help us in court." At the first mediation session, Derek showed up looking disheveled, a far cry from the polished finance professional he used to be. He had no lawyer, just a few handwritten notes. "She's trying to destroy my reputation. She doesn't deserve to be a mother," he snapped. Elaine didn't flinch. She opened her tablet, played the recording of Derek shouting at me when I was 8 months pregnant, then displayed the video of me arriving at the hospital, soaked in amniotic fluid while he drove away. The room fell completely silent. "Perhaps the one unfit to be a parent is you," Elaine replied calmly a few days later. Derek reluctantly signed the divorce papers but still refused financial support. He claims he has no income and can't pay a cent. Elaine explained, "But don't worry, we'll file to divide the marital assets before finalizing the divorce." Then something unexpected happened. Derek's former company, worried about their public image, voluntarily provided financial records, including a bonus. He had tried to hide. Elaine immediately filed a motion to freeze that fund to ensure child support. I didn't wish suffering upon Derek, but I also couldn't let my daughter go without because the man once called father wanted to escape responsibility. The night the court approved the support order, I stepped onto the porch, my daughter in my arms, breathing in the cool, early summer air. Looking at her peaceful, sleeping face, I whispered, "From now on, everything will be different." I promise I thought life would return to normal after the divorce, but I was wrong. The consequences of Derek's actions didn't stop. They snowballed, pulling him and his entire family into a downward spiral. News of his termination spread throughout the community where he had once been a familiar face. His name became synonymous with shame, the husband who abandoned his pregnant wife on the street. Even though my face wasn't shown in the clip, anyone close to us knew the story. And instead of blaming me, all the anger was directed at him. The man who used to wear expensive suits and sip wine at fancy parties was now the center of public contempt. I didn't follow the details closely, but Samantha often updated me. "Did you hear his parents received a foreclosure notice?" "Seems they couldn't keep up with the mortgage," she told me one early autumn morning. I said nothing. I didn't feel triumphant. Just empty. After all, I did once love him. "His mom, Miranda's bakery, had to shut down too," Samantha added gently, placing a hand on my shoulder like a silent warning. "People stopped going to the bakery. They began whispering behind Miranda's back, and a few articles even resurfaced her old remarks about me, the way she publicly belittled her former daughter-in-law and constantly taught her son to be strong. Now all of that had come back to haunt her. I remember the day she looked me up and down and said, 'If a woman doesn't know how to cook, don't expect to keep a husband.' Now the very community she once proudly boasted to had turned its back on her. The customers who once came for cake and tea now avoided her like she never existed. Derek still texted me less frequently, but consistently. Sometimes it was the same tired apologies. Other times it was self-pitying laments about his miserable life. And then there were the bitter accusations claiming I had blown everything out of proportion. I didn't respond. I had learned that silence is also a powerful way to end things. Replying to him would only prolong something that had long since rotted. One day I received a package with no return name. Inside was a handwritten letter in shaky penmanship. It was from Miranda Emily. "I'm not writing this letter to ask for anything, only to speak from the heart. I was wrong. I was proud. Blind to believe my son could do no wrong. What's happened to our family doesn't compare to what you've endured. But through this downfall, I finally understand what it feels like to be abandoned by the world. If one day you choose to forgive not for us, but for yourself, so your heart can be at peace, I wish you and your daughter nothing but peace, Miranda Whitmore. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. I understood what she meant, but that didn't mean I would forget. Forgiveness and forgetting are two very different things. I wouldn't live in hatred, but I would never walk the same road again. A few weeks later, I heard Derek had left the state. Rumors said he was waiting tables in a small town, barely making ends meet. That image was a far cry from the man who once proudly talked about stocks investments and a brilliant future. As for me, I returned to work after my maternity leave. With the support of my parents and Samantha, I slowly rebuilt my life. Sophia grew up healthy, full of laughter with bright brown eyes that seemed to speak winning hearts everywhere we went. One afternoon, while I was strolling in the park with her, a middle-aged woman approached and smiled. "You're Emily, aren't you? I follow your blog. Thank you for being so brave. You've inspired so many women like me." I smiled, feeling a little lighter inside. I used to think that life after divorce would be lonely and bleak. But it turned out that freedom and peace were sweeter than any fairy tale marriage. Our life slowly settled into rhythm. The little house near the woods on the north side of Rosefield, where my parents were enjoying their retirement, had become the first true home I'd known since leaving my old marriage. Each morning I'd wake to the sound of birds, the smell of fresh-baked bread from my mother, and the cooing of Sophia in her crib. Samantha, the neighbor who saved me when I was at my weakest, was still by my side like a big sister. She visited weekly, bringing fresh fruit, homemade pastries, and a kindness that always touched me. One time I joked, "Aren't you tired of my drama? It's like you're carrying my burden for me." She just smiled gently. Emily, sometimes helping others is how we heal ourselves. You don't know this, but your journey has been extraordinary. Women like you deserve a beautiful ending. It was during those visits that I met Ethan, Samantha's 32-year-old son, a structural engineer living in Riverdale, who visited his mom on weekends. The first time we met, he was quiet, his eyes carrying things unsaid, but every time he looked at Sophia, those eyes softened in the most surprising way. We started with simple greetings, then small conversations over afternoon tea. Gradually, we shared more about work, wildflowers, long hikes, and the disappointments we had each known. One evening, after everyone had gone inside, I was on the porch rocking Sophia to sleep. Ethan came out with 2 cups of warm ginger tea. He stood beside me for a long while, then gently asked Emily, "Have you ever thought about starting over?" That question quietly settled into my heart. Starting over, that phrase used to overwhelm me. But that night, under the soft yellow porch light and the gentle autumn breeze, I wasn't afraid anymore. "I'm not sure," I whispered. "I've only just learned how to survive. I don't know how to dream again yet." Ethan nodded, being honest with how you feel, that's enough for a first step. From that day on, he came by more often, not loud, not rushed, just small things, holding Sophia when my hands were full, fixing a loose chair, helping my parents clear the table after dinner. He didn't say much, but every gesture brought an unfamiliar sense of peace. One day, I saw Sophia laugh out loud as Ethan lifted her into the air. She had never laughed like that before. My heart tightened, not from sadness, but something softer like hope. Samantha was the first to notice one afternoon while we made tea. She tilted her head and teased, "Be honest, you and Ethan. Is something going on?" I blushed and laughed. "Can you read my mind or something?" "No need. It's all over your face, but I'm not pushing you. I just want you to remember. To keep living, you don't need to go back. You're allowed to move forward." Winter arrived earlier than usual. Snow blanketed the rooftops. Sophia had learned to roll over and started to crawl. One evening, as the whole family gathered by the fireplace, Ethan asked me to step onto the back porch. He handed me a small wooden pendant carved with my name and Sophia's. "I don't know what role I'll play in your journey," he said, looking me in the eye, "but if you'll let me, I'd like to walk it with you." I looked at him for a long time, then gently placed my hand on his. Cold wind slipped through my sleeves, but inside I felt warm in a way I hadn't for a long time. I didn't know what the future held, but this time I knew I was no longer alone. And happiness, even when it comes late, is always worth waiting for. My story isn't just about a painful marriage. It's proof that women can rise from heartbreak, stronger and more deserving than ever. When I let go of someone who didn't value me, I made room for real love to arrive. The past cannot be erased, but the choices I make today shape my future. And the greatest lesson I've learned: being a mother doesn't mean losing yourself, it means finally living true to your heart. Emily's journey isn't just a story about divorce, it's proof that even when life pushes us to the depths of despair, love, resilience, and self belief can help us rise one step at a time. Emily didn't just survive a painful marriage. She learned to love herself again, to start over, and most importantly, she gave her daughter a living example of courage. If you've ever felt alone, heartbroken, or lost while trying to rediscover your worth, know this: you are not alone. There are women like Emily and people like us who are here to share stories like these to remind you that hope is always within reach. If this story moved, you don't forget to hit the like button to help spread the message. Share this video with the women you love. Someone out there might need this light today. And if you want to keep walking alongside stories of healing, strength, and inspiration, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We'll be here bringing you stories that remind you true love does exist, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is begin again. See you in the next video.